Welcome back to Dan's on Fandoms. I'm Dan. In this video, I'll be discussing both canon and Legends material regarding the Sith Lord, Darth Bane, but primarily I'll be touching on Legends material. Darth Bane was a powerful and revolutionary Sith Lord that lived roughly 1,000 years before the events of the Phantom Menace. He was the father of the Sith Rule of Two, the doctrine that decreed there could only be two Sith at any one time. One Sith Master who would embody the strength and power of the dark side, and an apprentice to crave that power from their master. Additionally, he was the mastermind behind the Sith Grand Plan, which was a precise formula for eradicating the Jedi Order, tearing down the Galactic Republic, and replacing both with a Sith-ruled galaxy. Because of Darth Bane's Rule of Two, how the Sith Order operated was completely revolutionized, moving away from an order that numbered in the thousands and out in the open, but rather to an order that would operate in the shadows and only number two. No more, no less. Darth Bane understood that the Sith could only defeat the Jedi and obtain galactic conquest by operating in the shadows moving forward, utilizing the true tools of the Sith, which were lies, cunning, and betrayal. Because of this, Darth Bane transformed the Sith Order entirely. But what was Darth Bane's life like prior to him becoming a Dark Lord of the Sith, and one that would revolutionize the Sith Order? In canon, there is limited information on Darth Bane other than that he was a Dark Lord of the Sith, the sole survivor of the destruction of the Sith at the hands of the Jedi Order during the Jedi-Sith War 1,000 years prior to the events of the Clone Wars, and that he was the creator of the Rule of Two. In Legends, however, there is much more information on Darth Bane and his life. The Legends book, Darth Bane, Path of Destruction, provides a detailed look at Darth Bane's life prior to him joining the Sith and becoming a Dark Lord of the Order. If you haven't read this book and the trilogy, I'd highly recommend it, as it's one of my favorite Star Wars novels in both Legends and canon. In Legends, Darth Bane, whose birth name was Dezel, or Dez as he was often referred to, was born in 1026 BBY, which was 1,026 years before the Battle of Yavin, on the world of Apatros, where his father Hurst lived as a miner. Apatros was a desolate world in the Apatros system of the Severine sector. The planet was located in the Outer Rim territories under the jurisdiction of the Galactic Republic and was a planet abundant in cortosis. In both Legends and canon, cortosis ore was a very rare, brittle, and fibrous material. Cortosis had a very high energy absorption rate, which allowed the energy of a blaster bolt to be dissipated upon contact, and the ore could even withstand the blow of a lightsaber. This made cortosis a very useful and very sought-after resource. At some point, Apatros fell under the direct control of the Outer Rim Ore Works Company, also known as Oro, which maintained a cortosis mine on the planet. During the time Oro took over control of Apatros, the new Sith Wars raged across the galaxy. This was the conflict between the Jedi and Sith that lasted a millennia, beginning in 2000 BBY and ending in 1000 BBY. Because of the seemingly endless war between the Jedi and the Sith, cortosis was an extremely valuable resource. Planets that were found to have cortosis would often be stripped of the resource to help fuel the Galactic Republic, Jedi, and Sith war machines. On Apatros, miners that worked the cortosis mines were essentially regulated to a life of indentured servitude. Oro offered extremely low pay to those that worked the cortosis mine and forced their workers to live in squalid housing. Additionally, Oro gave out loans to workers who needed money for food, housing, or other basic necessities, but would charge their workers extremely high interest rates, thus perpetuating a system where miners would either take a longer period of time to pay off the loan, or the worker would be forced to work longer hours to cover the loan's high interest rates. Oro also forbade their miners from leaving Apatros until their debt was fully paid off. Individuals were allowed to leave Apatros to join either the Republic or Sith forces in the new Sith Wars, but their wages would be garnished until their debt to Oro was paid in full. Because of these conditions on Apatros, Des and his father Hurst lived lives of destitution and indentured servitude. To cope with his struggles and sad life, Hurst would drink and gamble away his problems, often blowing the little money that he and Des had. Hurst's alcohol abuse and gambling resulted in he and Des having a very strained and volatile relationship. Due to his rough life as a minor on Apatros and the fact that Des's mother died while giving birth to Des, Hurst often took his anger out on Des. Hurst would verbally and physically abuse Des and would also regularly call Des the bane of his existence. In 1010 BBY, at the age of 16, Des began to work in the cortosis mines of Apatros alongside his father. In 1008 BBY, now at the age of 18, Des was mercilessly beaten by his father. After a night of drinking, Hurst came home and sought to take out his anger on Des, as he so often would. Already strong and large for his age, Des had grown to no longer fear Hurst, but took the beating without giving his father the satisfaction of asking for mercy or crying out in pain. Hurst wound up breaking several of Des's ribs, among other injuries, during the course of the beating. Later that night, furious at his father, Des imagined his father dying. Des envisioned a giant hand squeezing his heart, and in the morning, when Des awoke, he found Hurst had died of a heart attack. Although unaware at that time, Des was the true cause of Hurst's death. He used the Force to stifle and stop Hurst's heart, and it wouldn't be until years later, now going by the name Bane, that Des would realize he had killed his father by using the Force. As time went on, Des continued to toil away in the cortosis mine. Due to the impurities in the air from mining cortosis, miners would lose all of their hair, and Des was no exception. Additionally, after years of hard labor in the cortosis mine, as well as his large stature, Des had become exceptionally strong and muscular. In 1003 BBY, now roughly 23 years old, Des had gotten into a fight with another miner by the name of Gerd, which resulted in Des biting Gerd's thumb off. Because of the altercation, Des was suspended and sent home without pay. After leaving the mine, Des decided to go to the sole cantina in the mining colony, which was owned and operated by a Nemoidian male by the name of Groshik, whom Des was somewhat friendly with. Des decided to join in on a sabacc game, something he would partake in from time to time, as his instincts allowed him to often win whenever he gambled. Des had joined a sabacc table with several players, including a Republic military commander and a Republic ensign. After quite some time of playing, and after an extremely close final hand, Des had beaten the Republic ensign and the other gamblers, and wound up walking away with a large sum of money. Later that evening, as Des was heading to his home, he was ambushed and attacked by Republic ensigns from earlier. The Republic ensign, whom Des had narrowly beaten in sabacc earlier that night, pulled a vibroblade on Des and tried his best to kill him. Des wound up disarming the man, taking his vibroblade, and stabbed him in the chest, killing the ensign. Frightened, in shock, and unsure where to go, Des decided to head back to the cantina to seek help from Groshik. With limited options, Groshik convinced Des that his only way to survive and escape this mess would be to escape Apatros entirely, but he can do that only by joining the Sith army. Des agreed, as he knew this was his only option to avoid capture and punishment by the Republic. After fleeing Apatros and joining the Sith army, Des was assigned to Lieutenant Ulabor's unit, which was known as the Gloomwalkers. During Des's time in the Gloomwalkers, the unit went from being an expendable frontline unit in the Sith army to an elite unit that was usually assigned important and difficult missions due to its high success rate. Much of the Gloomwalker's success could be attributed to the skills of Des and the respect he'd come to garner from his fellow troopers. Des's innate Force abilities and talent allowed for Des to excel in combat, which ultimately helped out his fellow troopers and the Gloomwalkers as a whole. Because of Des's combat prowess and Force sensitivity, and his stellar performances during battles such as the assault on Kashyyyk and the subsequent Battle of Hiskor on neighboring Trandosha, the soldiers of the Gloomwalkers respected Dez more so than the unit's actual commander, Lieutenant Ulabor. This caused tension between Dez and Lieutenant Ulabor, and that tension boiled over during the Battle of Fasira in 1002 BBY. During the battle, Sith commanders ordered the Gloomwalkers to strike a Republic outpost during the daytime, which would have been disastrous and deadly for the Gloomwalkers and Sith forces, as opposed to waiting and striking the base under the cover of night. Lieutenant Ulabor, however, feared the Sith Lords commanding the Sith army and chose not to object against the Sith High Command's orders, a move which angered and dismayed the Gloomwalkers. Instead of allowing Lieutenant Ulabor to lead the Gloomwalkers to their death, Dez led a mutiny, knocked Lieutenant Ulabor unconscious, and took command of the Gloomwalkers. The Gloomwalkers then waited until nighttime to move against the Republic outpost, and even though they encountered stiff resistance from Republic forces, Dez's heroics led to a Sith victory and the capture of the Republic outpost. Because of the Gloomwalkers' capture of the Republic outpost, Sith forces were able to strike the unprepared Republic forces in Fasira's capital, which resulted in the Sith taking over control of Fasira. Following the battle, the Gloomwalkers returned to their camp and found Lieutenant Ulabor and Sith military police waiting for Dez. Dez was arrested and faced a potential court-martial due to his mutiny. Dez feared that his betrayal against Lieutenant Ulabor would not be tolerated and that it would lead to his execution. However, word of Dez's heroics and accolades during the Gloomwalkers' attack on the Republic outpost and his apparent use of the Force during the attack spread throughout the Sith army. The Sith Lord, Lord Kopesh, upon hearing of Dez's feats and Force sensitivity, had Dez freed from Sith military police custody and had him sent to the Sith Academy on Korriban, the most elite of all Sith academies, where Dez would train in the dark side of the Force, would take on the name Bane, and would become a Sith Lord in the Brotherhood of Darkness. Darth Bane would eventually go on to become an extremely powerful Dark Lord of the Sith, as well as completely revolutionize the Sith Order and how they would operate moving forward. His vision and foresight for the Sith Order would eventually culminate in the toppling of the Jedi Order and Galactic Republic by the hands of Darth Sidious and Darth Vader a millennia later. Darth Bane has become a favorite character of mine in both Star Wars canon and Legends, and his early life is one of hardship and turmoil, which makes his descent into the dark side seem all the more plausible. But what do you guys think about Darth Bane's life before he became a Sith Lord? Were you aware of the events of his life before Darth Bane became a Sith Lord? Let us know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Follow Dan's On Fandoms on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Tumblr, all at Dan's On Fandoms. Thanks for watching, and stay nerdy.